about to join Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an Intel Analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Neuen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Neuen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You're now in Don Neuen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Hello.
Good evening, Denise Simon. Is your old buddy Don Neuen giving you a call again for tonight's Drive Time Situation Report. How you been?
Ducky.
All righty then, ladies and gentlemen. If you're picking up the same vibe I am, it might be a Midol night for Denise Simon. But let's say we get after it. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report with Denise Simon and myself, Don Neuen. I am in my automobile, driving home from a long day of work in the world of rock and roll. I am driving through the hood right now in Atlanta, Georgia. It is dark out. I have my headlights on. Denise, in a moment, is going to timestamp tonight's show, but we're bringing you along for an experience unlike any other radio show. For those of you joining us for the first time, the Drive Time Situation Report is basically a conversation that Denise Simon and I have. And we've had these conversations, Denise, going on 5 years. Are you aware of that?
Jeez, that long, eh?
Yep. And at any rate, I receive these SITREPs, or situation reports, almost every night, sometimes over the weekends when Donna and I will both call into Denise to get updates of what the hell's going on around here. Now, you're not going to have any commercial breaks. It's going to be 52 minutes of ahead-of-the-curve information. And this is how I appear to the masses to be more intelligent. It's because I obtain these SITREPs from Denise Simon on a daily basis. Before we get into it, please go to her website, founderscode.com. Founders with an S, code.com. And you, too, can appear to be more intelligent than you actually are to all of your friends and family. Denise, let's get after it. Timestamp it, please.
We are at 9:09 p.m. on the 9th of August, 2017.
Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Savings Time, or whatever the heck it's called this time of year. We're in the eastern side of the United States, ladies and gentlemen. Denise, it sounds like we may be going to war. At least that's the way all of the networks are spewing it forth. But I'm going to let you handle what you handle best, and that is my situation report. What is going on in the world?
Well, before we go over to Asia, let's come right back over into inside the Beltway, shall we? Because we had an unarmed Russian Air Force aircraft that flew over the U.S. Capitol, the Pentagon, the CIA, and Joint Base Andrews at a low altitude today.
Mm-hmm. Unarmed.
Unarmed.
Was it an unarmed Russian fighter jet?
It is a Tupolev Tu-154 flying at 3,700 feet, I might add. And the big question is, this is like no fly zone. This is like you can't fly in that airspace. And by the way, tomorrow it's going to be in the New York, New Jersey area.
Let me guess. Bedminster.
Yeah.
Not a bad guess, huh?
Now, here's the deal. We, the United States, whoever approved this, I don't know. But this is part of the Open Skies Treaty, which is one of the very first things I wanted Trump to terminate. Forget it. I don't want to do it anymore. Okay, but this jet was authorized to enter what they call the P-56, which is the highly secure airspace surrounding the White House. Okay.
All right, hold on. Let's go back and talk about who created this treaty situation, this this foreign potential enemies that can fly around wherever they'd like to fly around over sensitive real estate.
Well, Open Skies Treaty, I do understand part of it because it's been in effect since 2002. All right? Now, I get it.
All right, so that came in under Bush 43.
Correct.
And what's the basis of that? Why would we ever allow
in case we have to have it in case we have to have some kind of like access, pre-planned access, if we have to do fly over some other country's airspace, because remember we were in the throes of war in 2002. Okay, so we had aircraft flying all over the world, and our allies, NATO members, were doing the same thing. So that part I understood. But in the United States, we have the P-56, which is the secure no-flight airspace in Washington, D.C. Now, that means you can't fly there. Even our own civilian aircraft, some little guy flying around in a Cessna, he can't fly in the P-56. So why in the world did somebody give Russia authorization to fly in this airspace? Okay, it gets even better. It gets even better because our law enforcement was not given but like minutes worth of warning that they were coming, that this was happening. Oh, it gets better.
Well, wait a minute. But clearly, we've been tracking that plane since it left someplace, right?
Yeah, and according to the State Department, we knew about it, and this was okay, and this was cool, and whatever. And then we had to notify air traffic control, and we had to notify FAA. We had to notify an awful lot of people. Okay. But it gets even better. We had U.S. personnel on this plane with them.
Oh, really? Who?
I don't know.
What kind of plane was this? I mean, describe this plane. Is this like a fighter jet?
Oh, let me go see what this Tu-154 really is.
Because a fighter jet can only seat how many people? 2?
Exactly.
Maybe?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. But are we stupid? I mean, we're going through all this Russia stuff, and we do this. It's a 3-engine medium-range narrow-body airliner that is for communications mostly.
All right, so we had American citizens that were on this plane as well.
Why?
Well, yeah, why? But and we have no way of knowing who they are.
No, we're not getting that yet. I mean, I know I am. I caught a snippet of it earlier. Is this Tillerson State Department as stupid as the Hillary Kerry State Department? I'm sorry.
All right, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Denise. Could we have denied entry into that zone?
Yes.
Under the treaty, under the Open Skies Treaty, we could have denied entry, correct?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. I mean, do you think that Moscow would allow us to go fly some similar type of aircraft right over, the FSB headquarters and the Kremlin and Putin's houses?
No, much less at an altitude that's basically a buzz
Yes.
You know?
I mean,
my dirt road that leads from the paved road to my house is a greater distance than this jet was flying over over extremely sensitive real estate in Washington, D.C.
let me read this sentence to you. A law enforcement source said the plane overflew Camp David, the presidential retreat at the Catoctin Mountains, the Trump National Golf Course in Virginia, Mount Weather, by the way, which happens to be the U.S. government's secret relocation bunker.
Well, I think it's safe to say it's not necessarily a secret.
Not anymore.
I am like really curious as to who the Americans were that were on this craft. You got to find out who these people are.
Well, I heard about it earlier today. I listened to the State Department briefing today. They actually had one. And that question that I got, I never heard that question asked. So, I can't call up Heather Nauert and say, hey, you got to take this call because I want to know.
That's par for the mainstream media. They're not going to ask the Denise Simon questions.
I mean, this is an outrage.
Well, I knew something was going on. I could tell by the way you answered the phone tonight.
I don't get it. We fly over the CIA, we fly over the Pentagon, we fly over the Capitol, we fly over a secret bunker location.
Well, it can't be secret anymore.
Okay, obviously.
So let's just call it the unclassified, the declassified secret bunker.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, we all are being told essentially hate Russia. Russia did this, Russia did that, Russia's doing this, Russia's doing that. And we don't, one of the very first things I called for was to terminate or suspend the Open Skies Treaty. We're in a time of war. It's happening all over the globe.
Hey, does China have the ability to, are they one of the nations that is in this Open Skies Treaty? Dig it up, Denise. Come on. Dig it up. Watch this, ladies and gentlemen. Watch how fast she answers this question for us. And while she's looking, I'll welcome you to the Drive Time Situation Report. Don Neuen and Denise Simon at the helm. I'm in my car driving west on I-20 right now, looking at nothing but taillights. It is 9:19 Eastern. I forgot what the day is today, the 9th, I think, of August. It's Wednesday night because we record this show on Wednesdays so that you can listen to it on Thursdays or early Friday morning and then the rest of the week. By the way, Denise, Donna was listening tonight to, as a matter of fact, she called me to last week's situation report, and she wanted to know what in the hell you were laughing at. And I'm going, man, I don't remember. That's a week ago. And she goes, well, it had something to do with Trump and
the bouncing
Air Force
baby.
One.
Yeah, the bouncing baby Boeings.
She goes, she was laughing so hard, I wasn't even really sure what she was talking about. I said, well, you got to just finish listening to it.
And then Medvedev started trolling Trump, so I started trolling Medvedev. Okay.
But, hey, you got a big kick out of that. All right, what'd you find out, Denise?
China is not in it. There are 34 countries, and they all look pretty safe. They all look pretty good, except for, I would say, Russia. Turkey's in there. And by the way,
what about Holland? Is Holland in there?
No. Now, here's an interesting thing. There's only certain kinds of air.
By the way, I need to let you know that I'm from Holland.
I'm glad to know that. I'll alert the media.
What movie is that from? All right, I'll give you more
don't.
because you obviously can't figure it out.
I
All
don't
right.
know.
Let me think of another line. I don't like people that are intolerant of other people. Well, I'm blowing this. I can't remember the line. It's from Austin Powers. Donna will have to tell you what it is. It's very funny, and if I could have remembered the lines, it would have even been funnier. But right now, I know everybody's going, "What the hell's Neuen doing?"
Exactly.
So I'm gonna move, well, including you probably.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna move past to this now. What were you saying? What were you saying about these 34 countries?
Holland's not in it, by the way. Okay, now here's the deal. There is a quota.
From Holland.
Don, stay with me here
Yes,
on
ma'am.
this.
I'm with you.
There is a quota. They can do 31 observation flights during a. So we give them a quota, and then we do data sharing. Why? I mean, this is the more I look at it, this is like stupider.
Well, it's like inviting over people that don't like you to your house and going, okay, this is where my gun safe is, and here, write this combination down, and this is the mattress that we keep all of our money under, and here's my checking account number over here. Take my Social Security card while you're here. That's what this is like. I see why you were in a pissy little mood when I called.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the more I read some of the last sentence on this thing says, Russian aircraft has been using equipment upgraded over initial equipment and began restricting U.S. flights over Russia. So they're doing it to us, but we're not doing it to them? I mean, where is the State Department?
All right, Denise, who can the listeners that are listening to this right now call to raise hell about this? Who do they call?
I'll tell you, I'd call the State Department. I'd call the congressman. I'd start getting on social media. I'd start trolling, the State Department or the White House or the National Security Council. That's an outrage what happened today.
Yeah, and it's really not the right climate for this to be going on right this moment.
You think?
Yeah, I do think. All right, well, let's move away from this unless you've got any interesting facts that you want to share about it that you already haven't.
No, I want to.
And let's go
Guam. Because little Mr. Kim Jong-un today started trolling Trump, saying, oh, he's just full of bluster and he's not, nothing he says to me or about me means anything. And oh, by the way, we are going to we have strike plans on Guam by the middle of August. Well, the middle of August is next week.
All right, hold on a second. When you said that Kim Jong-un is trolling Trump, have we got two heads of state that are battling each other on Twitter?
I don't know where it necessarily came from because I don't watch their Twitter feeds. So I can't speak to, where that was necessarily coming from. Although
in the press back and forth, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so he's talking about tipping over Guam, like Hank Johnson so eloquently described, mid-August, which is next week. You're right.
Yeah, yes. And then, Mattis comes out and he has his statement that essentially says, and I'm really paraphrasing, hey, North Korea, chill out because whatever you have cannot begin to meet the might of the United States and its allies in the region. So it's kind of like check yourself. So, I mean, we have this war of words going on. This is an outrage, Don. Everybody needs to just shut up, I mean, okay. And so then I find out that on the nightly news tonight, which I caught a snippet, that we do have preemptive strike plans. Now that was the word, preemptive strike plans. Okay. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that they're sitting on the top of the pile of documents, or are they on the bottom of the pile? So where is this necessarily going to take us? Now, Rex Tillerson was in theater. He left. He left today. He's coming home.
Right.
So I was hanging out here when we started the SITREP report over, in Pacific Command and the 7th Fleet. I want to see who's where and who's doing what. Is Britain over there with us? What's Japan doing? What's South Korea doing? What do we got? And I pretty much hung out in Guam last night. So I'm trying to get a handle on, because little Kim Jong-un says he's going to strike Guam with 4 missiles. Not 5, not 40, 4. Now that's a little on the weird side, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Hey, Denise, I've got a question that came in from a listener this afternoon. And I would like, and I've known this guy for a number of years. I'll give it his first name only. Derek is his first name. And he's a good guy. I've known him for a long time. He was not a big supporter of Barack Obama. He's not a big supporter of Donald Trump. I would say he leans more toward the middle politically than you or I do. But his question with regard to a preemptive strike by the United States is, what has actually North Korea done to the United States that would warrant a preemptive strike? Now, I have my own opinion on that, but I would like to have you address Derek with your thoughts on that as to why the United States should or should not be the first to punch in this potential disaster.
Well, first of all, we're bound by treaties so we have to come to the defense of Japan and South Korea. That's the first thing. And South Korea has been in the state of perpetual war against North Korea since the Korean War. That's never gone away. They've always been in a state of quasi-readiness. And so that is the reason that we have so many forces in the region, in the Philippines and in South Korea, and what we do in Guam. So in order to protect Seoul and in order to protect Tokyo, if you will, Japan, we are bound by treaty. The second thing is, we've already seen the nuclear launches and the missile launches that they have done, such that they have proven the threat. I mean, the threat is there. We've seen it. This isn't just about words. It's, we've watched these missiles go off. And the fact that on May the 11th, the Defense Intelligence Agency gave a classified briefing to the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence that North Korea has miniature warheads that can go on these ICBMs. And they estimate the number to be in the range of 60. So we have to, in a nuclear realm, a missile realm with just a basic warhead on it's one thing. A nuclear realm is yet another. That ups the game. And so we have to be ready to be for a preemptive strike. Furthermore, that is on, I would say, in a missile posture. We also have a ground posture, because the DMZ is full of, maybe dated, but nonetheless, artillery batteries and tanks and whatnot that are pointed to South Korea. So we have a ground game that we have to consider. North Korea also has cruise missiles that they have put on guided missile patrol boats that we just watched them do that. They just loaded these anti-ship cruise missiles onto their guided missile patrol boats 2 days ago. So now we have a Navy component. So we've got air, ground, and water. And that was the very reason that I was really hanging out in Pacific Command just now and looking at what is happening with 7th Fleet and who is where and what kind of assets do we really have. I'm pretty confident that Guam itself can take care of itself. They've got at least one THAAD missile system, missile defense system, and they've had that for quite some time. If they have more than one, I don't know that yet. I haven't seen indications that there is more than one. We also have a Stratcom telecommunications system in Guam, interestingly enough, that points directly, unimpeded, if you will, to Los Alamos. And that is due to the scientists, the nuclear scientists and the weapons scientists at Los Alamos that can measure every piece of activity that North Korea has taken since their first nuclear launch, 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the sniffer planes in the air. We have the seismic earthquake wave and ripples experts that are looking at all of the underground explosions and blasts that happen. We are obviously doing things like satellite. And those are all the things that we're doing. South Korea is doing their part. Japan's doing their part. So we're all kind of collaborating. So we know precisely within feet, maybe even within inches of what North Korea is doing. So none of this is a surprise to us. What is of concern here is estimating, if we can, what Kim Jong-un is going to do, what China is going to do, and I would argue what Iran is going to do, such that we can maintain an offensive posture and not be in a defensive posture. That would be the worst of all. So when we come to the notion that, millions of people can die, and that if we go drop something on North Korea that millions of people are going to die, that's bluster, because everything that we do is essentially precision guided. I don't believe that we're going to put any nuclear ordnance in play here. We will use everything up to and including the Minutemen, the Triad system, which are nuclear capable. I might add, our bombers that we have in theater are not nuclear bombers. So we apparently are not. We are maybe be prepared for some kind of a nuclear response, but I don't think that we would ever use it unless things just got really crazy. And if they did, then that means that our upfront calculations were wrong. Did any of that make any sense?
Yeah, all of it made sense. Derek, I hope that you appreciated your own personal situation report by Denise Simon. And I would encourage you and all the other listeners to go to her website, founderscode.com, founderscode.com, where you can read all of her daily blog posts. Denise, you're usually cranking out any place from 3 to 6 of those a day. I don't know what you're cranking out right this second, but ladies and gentlemen, it is a way that you can stay way ahead of the curve with regard to intelligence updates and things that are going on globally that you do need to know about. She sifts through it for you. Nothing goes up on that website unless it's supported by factual documentation. So you can take
Well,
take what she says to the bank.
yeah, thank you for that. I will tell you, I think I only posted one thing today, and the reason I did that is, and it was certainly on this North Korea mess, but because everybody in the last week or so has been blaming Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton. If Bill Clinton hadn't done what Bill Clinton had done, we wouldn't have been in this problem with North Korea with regard to nuclear weapons. I'm going to say that's crap. I don't have any use for Bill Clinton, and I certainly don't have less use for Madeleine Albright, who was part of that. But given the time span, he really had nothing to do with this. And then if you want to blame subsequent presidents like, Bush Jr. and whatnot, I'm still going to call crap on it, because an awful lot of things can happen in 8 years. And I would argue that the real blame needs to be on Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and John Kerry, and I'll tell you why. There was a time early into Barack Obama's first term that we had something called the Asia pivot. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So I decided today, what happened with this Asia pivot thing? What did we get out of it? I mean, had this.
Recap. Let's be thorough. Recap the Asia pivot.
Well, that's kind of what I'm. That's kind of what I'm doing. I mean, I read a 104-page report today, and then I read another one that was about 60 pages. So the Asia pivot was where we were going to pay a lot of attention to China. We were going to pay a lot of attention to the Senkaku Islands and the islands that are in dispute over there in the South China Sea. We were going to start doing trade. We were going to, even do some things militarily and blah, 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 blah. Well, the truth of the matter is, in Obama's second term, there was some interesting things that happened. One, Hillary went away, and then we got John Kerry. And then with that, what did we get? Well, we got the Iran nuclear program that John Kerry decided that he wanted to pay exclusive attention to. And then we had the rise of Islamic State. Then we got rid of so many at the CIA. I mean, we went through Panetta and we went through Petraeus and all of that. And then when the same thing happened at defense, we went through Hagel and Panetta over there. And so we had those changes. But South Korea had a change in power. China had a change in power. And Japan had a change in power. So all of a sudden, this Asia pivot had a bunch of new players in it. And it's kind of like, well, the only person that really kind of wanted to stay with this thing was Barack Obama. And why would he want to do that? For two reasons. And I think this whole Asia pivot thing that he put the military through, the War College through, and everybody else through was a ploy, because what he wanted to get out of it was the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership thing, and the Paris Agreement, which is all we got. In the meantime, in all those talks and all that attention and the reset and the restart or the readjust or the realign or whatever they wanted to call it, should have said, China, hey, you're the biggest enabler here of North Korea. And while we're at it, you need to handle what is happening here with North Korea. And they didn't do that. So certainly in the last 4 years, given what North Korea was doing, especially with Iran, and I can tell you that as dedicated as John Kerry was to Iran, that he knew precisely what collaboration and collusion that Iran was having with North Korea as well as China. So what do we get out of it? The transfer of power from Obama over to Trump. Obama says, oh, by the way, your biggest and immediate problem is going to be North Korea. So Trump should have said, hey, let's talk about this. But apparently he really didn't. I think that, Trump wanted to come out with some other things immediately, and North Korea wasn't on that radar. And now we are where we are. And that's the hell of the whole thing. It was like all of these distractions and interferences were going on. And I would argue that Kim Jong-un, and I would say the mullahs in Tehran, and I would say the Putins of Moscow were all taking advantage of all of this chaos. So now...
no doubt.
Exactly. So now here's where we are. I mean, we were concentrated on 2015 and 2016 into the throes of an election cycle. Obama clearly wasn't paying attention. John Kerry took his eye off the ball when it came to North Korea. I mean, I'm not sure I ever heard John Kerry even mention North Korea.
And what about Hillary Clinton?
Well, she was in the early part of all of this. During the Asia pivot thing. But then she kind of went, yeah, I'm just here, carrying Obama's water. And that was kind of the end of it. And so here's where we are. We got this cat over here in Pyongyang that's got 60 nuclear weapons, obviously a delivery system of which, the biggest question is, we know that it's got 2 rocket boosting systems in it that can reach, regardless of who you talk to, it can at least reach the West Coast. And some say that can reach all the way into possibly Chicago. If he can keep the thing together. And, maybe he's got something that it is together, and what he's shown us so far are not true failures. Or we got involved in it and we forced them to fail by cyber or by electronic warfare. So, I mean, we got to...
Does he have capabilities of detonating an EMP or electromagnetic pulse?
If somebody gives it to him, the answer to that would be yes. But I'm not as afraid of an EMP as I am. While we're all, you have to take a wide view all the time, which is very hard, I know, for everybody, because we're concentrating on what's coming at us and sitting in front of us. But while we're all worried about the nuclear weapons and Guam right now, how do we know that, in fact, we don't have some kind of cyber nuclear weapon that's going to hit us, in the middle of all this? I mean, we seem to, look one place and not 10 others.
Well, and ironically, we are one of the most least protected countries when it comes to that kind of stuff. Now, granted, we've got some pretty decent technology, but I'm gonna move back to the grid and to EMPs. You've got North Korea, Russia, China, Iran is deep into it, in which they're protecting their electrical grids. One of these schmucks ends up taking down our grid. We got a major, major, major epic problem on our hands. And, this guy's launching rockets from North Korea that are going, what we say last week or 2 weeks ago, 70,000, how far up what were we sending these rockets? What was it, Denise? It was way up there.
Yeah,
and the thing is, if he gets
yeah.
one of those up and detonates an EMP over the continental United States, if it's detonated, we're screwed. If we take it out and we can prevent that from being detonated, then we might be okay. But he shuts down this grid, and we've got a major problem on our hands.
Well, that's kind of the other interesting component of all of this, which is really why I was kind of going through this exercise last night and tonight, and I'm clearly not even begun to, get into it. And that is, where are we when it comes to defense systems, not only in theater, meaning in the Sea of Japan or the South China Sea, but furthermore, where are we when it comes to, strategic defense, Ronald Reagan's SDI. I mean, we have launched a couple of those defense systems out of Vandenberg, but we've got a 50% success ratio. That's not good enough. Then we have, some other things like the Minutemen's and, the defense systems that we have in Greeley, Alaska, and Wyoming and North Dakota. That's all right too. Then we have the nuclear triad systems. I am not an expert on any of these by any stretch. So we can see these things. We know that they are out there, but what do we do to stop them in midair or at launch or what? I don't know. So I really would have to kind of, sit down and talk to somebody who's a whole lot smarter than me. There is something that is kind of interesting that we are doing, and I actually talked to somebody who used to be a bomber pilot, are we doing something called a chrome dome? And a chrome dome was what we did during the height of the Cold War with the Soviets. And that means that we were flying different types of aircraft around in a loop around the continental United States in a wide berth, I would add, kind of like a perimeter, but that perimeter took us all the way up into very close of the Arctic and came back down again. Those planes, Don, flew 24/7. They virtually never stopped. And we did that as an offensive, well, I guess I would say a defensive posture, just trying to keep, some kind of an orbit of where things are. Are we doing that today? Kinda, sorta. We are doing that today. We have, in the last 3 days, for 10 hours each day, we have been flying in a trilateral mode with South Korea, Japan, and us. Bomber fleets and wingmen in other types of aircraft around China, Japan, South Korea, in that area. So I mean, we're doing it in a provocative move, but we're also doing it as part of a training mode in case we have to go to what they would call a miniaturized and modern day chrome dome in that region. So in answer to your EMP thing, it would be kind of a another layer of watching what is happening out of North Korea. Did that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got about 10 minutes left, ladies and gentlemen, before we have to wrap this show up. Again, you're listening to the Drive Time Situation Report with Denise Simon and myself, Don Neuen. I am in my car driving home. You're listening and riding along with me on one time a week, what I end up getting any place from 4 to 7 times a week from Denise. As a matter of fact, I got one this morning on the way in. So we just wanted to bring you along. It's a radio show unlike anything else or any other radio show, because, Denise, I don't know anybody that does a radio show driving in their car every week.
I don't either.
Kind of unique. At any rate, I mean, anything can happen. I can lose a signal. You can drop out. I can have a wreck, whatever. Rain, road noise, the whole 9 yards. But I think from the response that we're getting from people, this show is an absolute hit, and I'm thrilled. Now, Denise, let's move back over to North Korea for a second and talk about South Korea. Let me throw out a couple of statements, and you can validate or negate them. North Korea has a massive amount of biological and chemical weapons. Is that correct?
True.
Okay. The majority of those biological and chemical weapons are probably being prepared or aimed at South Korea. Is that potentially true?
I would say that we have to assume that they are.
Okay. How big of a threat to South Korea is Kim Jong-un and his biochemical arsenal right this moment? Is he focusing on that? Or is that something where, the nuclear thing might be, focus on my right hand,
yeah, exactly.
On my left hand annihilate you?
Yesterday in Facebook, and I don't generally do that kind of thing, but I felt it to be an indicator that we have provided chemists and scientists to South Korea, and they test the water systems daily in South Korea for that very reason. Now, if they're testing water, they may be testing other things as well, but that was a confirmation that they are testing the water supply daily.
All right, and how about the socialist president, the left-wing president that we've got in South Korea right now that's trying to cuddle up and be warm and fuzzy and create some kind of a dialogue, sit-down dialogue with Kim Jong-un? Is he starting to have a come-to-Jesus moment where maybe he ought to go ahead and put those THAAD systems in place, and China needs to back down on trying to prevent that from happening so that little South Korea can defend itself?
South Korea, our new leader over there, was given a new hymn book. And so he is singing all the other verses that we are leading with. So he's in check now. And
what realization moment made that take place?
The last launch.
Good.
The
I'm
other
glad
thing
he got
is
with the program.
Yeah, and the last thing is I think that we've got 6 THAAD systems in South Korea, of which I haven't seen, but I know that he was finally approving to turn them all on, so to put them at the ready. Now, that obviously caused some real consternation with China because they don't want them there, and I think that is still a
Well,
sticking
I would assume
point.
China's still trying to hack into them, right?
Somebody is, yeah.
Okay. I don't think it'd be anybody other than China.
Well, I mean, China can use proxies, and China can use proxies, or they can outsource it to somebody else. But everybody wants to know all of our technologies, and China is the biggest thief of technology when they are not demanding what I call technology transfer. All the stuff that we have made in China, right down to if we've got cloth tablecloths being made in China, or we have video games being made in China, or we have toys being made in China, you have to give them the technology, the blueprints, all of those kinds of things before any of those factories will accept orders, period. And we do.
Well,
That's the other stupidness.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that if it's made in China, it's been stolen.
Yeah, of course.
Okay? So nothing, ladies and gentlemen, that you buy that says made in China has not already, the technology behind it, the blueprint for it, the patent, the whole 9 yards, it's all been stolen by China. They have the technology now, right? Right down to Barbie and Ken.
That's right.
Gotcha.
That's right.
All right, we got about 4 minutes, Denise. I'm going to pose another question that I got hit with by a listener, and forgive me because I can't remember who sent this to me, and I can't check it to verify it while I'm driving. If you were Donald Trump, or if you were advising Donald Trump and he would actually listen to what you had to say, what would you say?
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know at this point where I could prioritize it all. I mean, I've got issues with the man. We need to restore this country, and you can't put things necessarily in priority order because, I mean, we've got so many moving parts in government. You can do a lot of things simultaneously. So, I mean, we went through this whole bluster of this nonsense with the executive order on the travel suspension, which I had a real problem with. He could have set the table on that one and done a lot of things that would lead up to that, such that we wouldn't be sitting in court going through all that nonsense. I would have come out first with some kind of tax reform deal, because that would have infused a real economy shot, such that too that we could have also repatriated the trillions, and we don't even know how many trillions of dollars of U.S. currency are sitting offshore, such that
Right.
they could have come back in. So I think I would have started there. I would have, there was a lot of things, and that when that comes back in, by the way, that would have added a lot of money into the tax revenue stream, that we could have a better job in passing a budget instead of continuing in a continuing resolution, of which in October we're going to have to raise the debt ceiling, which to me is an outrage. So I think I would have started there. Now, when it comes to foreign policy, again, as I start off, I would have suspended this Open Skies Treaty thing right off the bat. I would have changed up the rules of engagement for Afghanistan. I would have told the Baghdad government, this is what we're going to do, and you get your Iranian militias, the 140,000 Iranian militias out of there. I would have armed the Kurds immediately. I mean, I would have taken this sanctuary city model that we seem to have here in the United States, and I would created sanctuary cities in these countries that we're getting infused with. Go create a sanctuary city in Honduras and El Salvador and Guatemala.
Wait a minute. Don't you mean welcoming city?
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
All right, hang on. I got to put you on pause for a second here because we're getting close to being done here. All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, we've gone from Russian
flyovers,
buzzing sensitive real estate in the Washington, D.C. area over to Kim Jong-un. We hopefully answered and explained to our good friend Derek what's going on and why there may need to be a preemptive strike. Denise, I've got very little time left, but I need to ask you this last question. With Congress in recess, how is it that Trump can do a preemptive strike if it would be considered an act of war?
That's an interesting question because he can do that under the War Powers Act. He has 90 days. But I would have said before anybody goes, we have this problem because we had this problem. It was told to, in May, that we could have resolved that whole issue and not be, waiting till the last minute. So, when they come back, I don't know. He can call them back and say, we have to do this, and do, a verbal vote. I don't know. But, that's kind of a testy little thing because that is an area that is not covered under the existing authorization for use of military force that we're operating under that from the Bush administration.
Darn good question, wasn't it, Denise?
Yes, sirs.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Drive Time Situation Report with Denise Simon. My name is Don Neuen. We have got to sign off. We want to thank our affiliates and our flagship stations, talkamericaradio.us. Ron Phillips, man, we love you like a brother. We also want to thank WDDQ Talk 92.1 FM out of Valdosta, Georgia, WJHC 107.5 out of Jasper, Florida, and WLBB 1330 AM and 106.3 FM out of Carrollton, Georgia. Thanks for having us on the air. Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. We do this for you, and we will never, ever waste your time. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week. God bless America, and have a fantastic week. Good night, Denise.
Blessings. Bye, everybody.